I saw my dad about the same time as he saw me. He had died in a car accident in December 1983. My dad was busy playing with my dog Nicky, who had died in the late 1970s. He cupped both hands over his mouth and, using his sergeant major's voice, yelled at me,
"Go back. We are not ready for you yet."
My NDE occurred at the Grand National Final Racing event in Atlanta, Georgia. I believe 100% that the reason why I had another crash in March 2010 is because I did not share this experience with others. God allowed it to happen to me as a wake-up call. Not only did I gain a lot of information, but I had a huge change in my outlook in life. At the racetrack, I finished in the top 3 in my region for the class, Clubman. I was on the front row of the motorcycle race, and I was about to start down a very sharp downhill slope. Unbeknownst to me, there was a huge oil spill from a fellow competitor blowing up his clutch in the entrance of turn 3. On the second lap of the race, so many racers crashed there that I thought that the race would be stopped, but it wasn't. The slowdown made it necessary for me to speed up to make up time. I knew in order to catch the leading riders before the long straight, I had to pass this guy completely before the oil spill started in turn 3. I didn't make it because rear tire hit the oil, and I went down and then lost consciousness. I came to when I stopped in a cloud of red Georgia clay dust. My helmet's windshield was torn from the left side mounting points. My eyes were full of dust. I felt something heavy lying on me. I saw my bike, and at the edge of the track I saw something blue lying on the ground that looked a lot like my leg and the pants of my leathers. I felt something real hot in my pelvis area, and thinking that blue thing was my leg, I panicked. I thought that the hot feeling was me losing blood from the major artery being severed. 2 corner workers came rushing over and asked if I was okay. I yelled, "No, I am not okay." I started to tell them what I needed them to do. Then, both of them passed out. I took a couple of deep breaths to calm myself down. I realized that I must have badly broken my left forearm. I noticed that the other guy's bike was lying on top of me. When I could see better and I was more conscious, I was relieved that the blue thing lying at the track's edge was not my leg. I tried to get the bike off of me, but my leg was stuck between the forks. I passed out from the pain. After going in and out of consciousness for a while, I heard alarms coming from the machines my body was attached to. Instantly, I felt no pain. I was floating on the ceiling in my room and looking down on myself. Vicky came running into the room, followed by 3 other nurses. Vicky took one look at the monitors and started giving orders. "Julie, go get me the specialist on duty ASAP." One of the nurses took off running. I looked behind me and up to see what looked like a highway filled with cars with their lights on. As I got closer, I saw human figures that all had what looked like a light shining from their navel area. The highway they were on was going to what looked like a very bright portal. I felt that I had to join them, and instantly, I was among them. We were talking via telepathy. I would think a question in Afrikaans or English, and I would get an answer in the language that I asked the question in. At first, I did not think much about it because some English is understood by most people. But what made me start to wonder is that when talking across languages, normally there is some finger pointing, drawing, and some arm swinging. But here, there was none of that. There were many people in my group. I asked them all, "What language do you hear?" They all replied, "My language." Then I switched to Afrikaans and repeated the question in Afrikaans. This time, they replied in Afrikaans. I asked them what language they used when they replied, and they all replied again, "My language." What is funny to me is that I do not speak very high Afrikaans, nor do I speak proper English, but their replies were on the same level that I use when I used both languages. Next, I asked, "Any of you guys know where we are going?" They all pointed to the bright portal. One of them said, "We're going to purgatory." I asked, "What will we do when we get there?" Someone said, "This is where we give a review of every decision we ever made while we were on Earth. See how those decisions we made affected God's plans, and see how it affected other people's decisions they made." I replied, "That is going to take years." The reply was, "Time only exists on Earth." We continued for a while. Then I felt an urgent need to pee. There was what looked like a rest area exit off of a highway, and I felt that I must take it. The area I was in was very dark. It was so dark that I could not see my legs from below the knees. I looked up and saw a very wide, fast-flowing and deep river. Across from the river, I saw the most beautiful place. To me, it looked like a well-groomed and kept park. It was much more beautiful than what I used to see as a child in the Kruger National Park's campgrounds. To my surprise, I saw my grandmother, who died 1 or 2 years before I immigrated to the USA in June 1983. I started to get in the river to try and get to where she was. I find out just how strong the current was, because I almost lost my footing before the water level was halfway up my legs to my waist. The current was that strong. My grandmother saw me, but only motioned with one arm, waving for me to go away. I saw my dad about the same time as he saw me. He had died in a car accident in December 1983. My dad was busy playing with my dog Nicky, who had died in the late 1970s. He cupped both hands over his mouth, and using his sergeant major's voice yelled at me, "Gan terug, ons is nogni reg virjuni," in English. "Go back, we are not ready for you yet." I turned around and started to cry as I headed back out of the river. I could not go back on the highway in the same direction I was going. The only road I could find was leading back down to Earth. The major difference between this road and the one I was on was that this one had much more small souls on it. I asked why this was, and someone answered me, "We are small because we have to be small, as we all are entering babies' bodies. Some are smaller because they are in the testing phase to find the body, family, and culture they feel most comfortable to enter and stay in to complete their tasks that they agreed to get accomplished with God and the Holy Spirit." I asked them to explain to me how this worked. When the egg is fertilized in the woman's womb, a soul gets assigned to it. That soul can come and go as it wants. It does this via the woman breathing, the final entry that soul makes into the particular body it chooses. With the guidance and help from God and the Holy Spirit, it enters the baby's body with the first few breaths it takes after birth. When that body dies, the soul leaves the body with the final breath that particular body exhales. All of a sudden, I was back in my room, hanging from the ceiling. I was watching them feverishly working on my body. I watched them several times as my body jumped from the shock it received from the paddles, while they tried to get my heart going again. How long I was gone, I do not know. I decided to go back into my body, and instantly the pain was back. Later, Vicky came in with Julie and asked how I was. She told me she would like to introduce me to my new night nurse. I replied that I was okay, just hurting a lot. Then I asked, "You want to introduce me to Julie?" Both their jaws hit the ground, I think. Vicky said, "How do you know her name?" Followed by Julie saying, "I have no name tag on, and I only saw you while you were flatlined." I told them what happened. I have shared my experience with very few people until my last accident in 2010. After I came out of a 3-month coma, I felt I had to share this 1990 experience. That does it for today's video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment below.